Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My Practice Plan introductory session here. I'm here to answer questions for people that are interested in the class and explain a little bit more about what the class is all about for those of you that are new to all this. So a little bit of background, we've been teaching a version of this class for many years, and earlier this year in April, we started to partner with the Institute for Functional Medicine to put together a class specifically for them and for their students and the people that are associated with IFM. And so it's been a very exciting collaboration. The first project that we undertook was to put a group of IFM faculty through the training program as it existed. And then we've had many, many meetings and get-togethers to sort through the curriculum to make sure that it's robust and it meets all of the needs of the doctors that attend at the Institute for Functional Medicine. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity for me to work with their faculty and really start to explore even a better level of curriculum development and whatnot. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about the collaboration and where we landed and what we're offering now. So it's a collaborative effort between, put on by the Kalish Institute, but very much in conjunction and in collaboration and partnership with IFM. And the course has a series of modules, and I'll go through some of the details here just briefly. We focus a lot in the beginning on what I call the 3 Ps, which is looking at the practitioner's needs, patient needs, and then the needs of the business or the practice. And that whole first section of the course is oriented around understanding yourself, what your goals are, the things that you're striving for in your own personal life and in your business life. So once you sort of get a sense of where you want to go, then we start to think about the 3 variables that may be intertwined for you: insurance-based, fee-for-service, or a membership model. And we have information on all those 3 practice systems, practice models. And then we get into the modules through the course. And so the various modules in the class include a very robust section on strategy. That's business planning, financial planning. I'll show you some more detail about that. We talk about operations for a section. We get into patient communications and all that has to do with customer service oriented type stuff. And then we took a look at sales and marketing. And then we end with a very significant module on legal strategy that's been put together in collaboration with myself and an attorney named Michael H. Cohen, who some of you may have heard of. I'll tell you a little bit more about Michael in a minute as well. At the end of the process, we're planning on you all having a practice plan in place so you can start to implement whatever your dream practice is regarding functional medicine. And the IFM faculty that went through the course were really I would say at the same time impressed by the course and also challenged the course materials, and so I feel like we've really up-leveled ourselves and have a very wonderful offering now for you all. And just a brief introduction to a little bit about my background and where I come from. And sorry, hang on a second, I got my slides backwards here. Sorry. There we go. And so, this is a business class, and it's designed and oriented around helping practitioners, nutritionists, naturopaths, acupuncturists, medical doctors, every type of practitioner to build a practice. And that involves collecting money. But I want to talk a little bit about my background and where we're coming from in terms of why this class is structured the way it is. So my grandfather was an artist named Max Kalish. And Max was a socialist. He was devoted his career to doing art. Making sculptures, bronze sculptures of laborers in the 1920s and 30s, and was a big part of the labor movement in the United States. Again, a movement for social change. My father, Richard Kalish, was an academic. He was a social psychologist, and Dad wrote a dozen or 2 books, probably at least 100 research articles, all in the area of death and dying. And one of Dad's projects was to write the original grant for the Shanti Project. And I was looking this up as I was preparing for the lecture. Direct quote from the Shanti Project's current website. This was back in the 70s when my dad wrote the the proposal. One of the first organizations in the world to train lay volunteers to treat what mainstream medicine does not and cannot treat: isolation and loneliness. And the Shanti Project was designed to take care of people who were dying. And so again, my dad was really active in the whole gerontology movement and in the creation of more awareness around the area of death and dying. I grew up in Berkeley, California. I went to Antioch College, one of the most liberal schools in the United States. When I graduated from Antioch, I ended up in this monastery, in this hut in the middle of the jungle of Thailand with these monks. And this is a modern day picture, but in my early 20s, this is what I was doing. And the monks in Thailand wouldn't even allow to handle money. So, you add all this together. My background was very anti-business, anti-corporate. And, what we're trying to do in this class is identify with practitioners who are in a similar position to where I was, right? Where I had very poor business skills. In fact, I had negative business skills. Really, I was, between growing up in Berkeley and my father, my grandfather, my whole, DNA was oriented around this social movement type stuff. And we're talking with one of the doctors at IFM. She said I was probably homozygous for liberal susceptibilities, right? It's like in my DNA, anti-profit, anti-corporate. And yet here I was in the early years of my practice, in complete denial that I was trying to make a living doing this, and figuring that if I just started my own clinic and was the best practitioner that I could be, that everything would work out. And then in the 90s, when my son was born, I realized, wow, if we're going to buy a house in the Bay Area in California, this is going to take some hustle on my part to start to increase my income. And so because of my son being born, I started to develop business skills as a person who wanted to develop, a successful family life as well as a successful clinic. And I was able to double my income in about 5 years. I was able to build 3 integrative health clinics. I did all kinds of things in this business phase of my career, but it came long after I had developed the interest in functional medicine. And I had a good, 5 or 10 year stretch where I really was ignoring all the business practices. And now, the last 10 years or so, I started to really focus on the idea of business and how business can interact with and support those of us that are in practice that really want to make a difference. And so when I look at myself and I look at the doctors out there that want to start functional medicine practices, I see that there's this fear of change. There's this fear that this may not work out and you're going to end up financially ruined or uncertain of what's going to happen. And there's this passion from a lot of practitioners, but they're just afraid to take the leap. And much of that fear revolves around income. And so if we're going to have a successful movement for social change here, and all the doctors on the other side of this are afraid to join the movement, we have a problem. And so we have to have some kind of business instruction in place so doctors feel comfortable, practitioners feel comfortable making this leap and coming over and starting a functional medicine practice. When we think about this is really a return back to where things were 100 years ago, where private practice was the norm. We just want practitioners to, embrace this sort of movement back to the origins of practitioners, which were not part of large insurance groups, not part of large hospital groups. People who are making a go of it in their communities, serving their communities, and making enough money to support themselves and be comfortable. We're not talking about buying airplanes and boats here. We're just talking about enough financial support that you can be very comfortable with your lifestyle and help a lot of patients. And so one of the things that we see also when I talk to doctors around the country is that there's just not they don't have a ton of examples of how this works. And so it's very hard for them to imagine what the business model can be. And part of what we're trying to do with the course is provide a lot of examples of how this can work in your life and how you can be successful doing this. Big hurdle for a lot of practitioners is concerns around charging patients. Charging for your services, what are you worth? Charging for supplements. We feel that we're healers as we are and that it's really not about the money. And as I said, the monks that I lived with, and I was in Thailand for 2 years living with the monks, and they weren't even allowed to touch money, like not even allowed to physically come into contact with it, let alone spend it. So I get that, kind of standoffishness that a lot of us have and not wanting to be salesy and not wanting to present ourselves as being money oriented. But at the same time, we have to get these practices going if we're going to keep this movement sustained. And I feel that if we can get, and this is kind of the assignment in a sense that I was given by the senior monk when I left the monastery in my mid-20s, he was like, okay, you're going back to the United States, I get that, you're not going to stay, because I had originally planned on ordaining and staying in the monastery the rest of my life. And he's like, if you're going to go back to the United States, just make sure that you incorporate your emotional and spiritual well-being into whatever it is you do. Good luck, kid. See ya. And I really took that to heart, though. So when I came back to the United States, I had a more spiritual orientation to how I wanted to design my practice. But then at some point, I ran up against this reality that we're actually also running a business. And I want to try to, for all of us, unite this emotional and spiritual growth and need that we have as practitioners with the idea that we can make a comfortable income. Now, I've trained over 1,000 practitioners. I've been doing this for quite a few years now, 11 years, maybe a little bit longer. And one of the things that I see are like, what are really consistent characteristics that make practitioners almost guaranteed to be successful. The number one thing is that they have a passion and excitement for functional medicine. That almost guarantees success right there. Okay, there are so many patients looking for people right now. There is not a problem on the supply side, right? There is, I mean, it's a problem on the supply side of doctors, but not on the supply side of patients, right? There's a huge demand for this kind of work out there and not enough practitioners. So if you get your business set up reasonably well, it's efficient, it's profitable. I'm not talking about gouging people. We're just talking about you making a comfortable living. And then you prepare yourself and you set the business model up in a way that's emotionally and spiritually rewarding. You can be doing this for a really long time. If you just set up a kind of half-ass practice and you ignore all the business stuff and you're not being efficient with the way you're handling money, you're going to end up getting burned out. And we see that happen with a lot of practitioners who don't put enough energy into the business. So we're not talking about enough energy into the business for you to buy a private island. And we don't want you to be Richard Branson or Elon Musk and have some huge, not expecting huge business skills out of anyone or for you to make billions of dollars. We just want people to be on a comfortable trajectory so they can support themselves and do the self-care that they need. We also find that there's different phases of practice, right? There's this first 5 years of practice. Practitioners that are new to functional medicine, they have really clear needs. That 5 to 10 year mark, there's a whole different set of needs. Practitioners at that point are usually getting their clinical skills down. They may be starting to think a little bit about the business side of it. They're getting more comfortable with the actual work itself. And then that 10-year plus mark, we find a lot of practitioners come into our course because they're a little burned out. They never really got the business set up as perfectly as they could, and they're ready now to slow down a little bit in terms of the number of hours they're working and make things more efficient. So we catch practitioners at all these different phases of development in this class. And we want to make sure that we're uniting these three variables so that we have the financial situation well underhand, that your mission-oriented goals are not sacrificed, and that you have room for spiritual or personal growth. And what we find a lot of times is that the green bubble here is huge and the financial bubble is teeny tiny, and there's just not enough attention being paid to the reality of running a business. And we want to make sure that we sort of fix that. So the My Practice Plan course, I want to show you the actual class itself, and then there's a few questions that have come in earlier that I want to answer. But the actual My Practice Plan course itself is in this community, and it's pretty exciting. I'll show you a little bit about what the community is like, and you can see what the actual class structure is like as well. So we have three basic features. We have the online content, which is lectures, as one would think, posted in an online class, and we have then assignments that you carry out that are all part of that, and then we have a whole section where it's really about the community, and I'll show you the community right here, and then we have the actual classes. So within this particular class, here's the My Practice Plan course here. You end up having access to all these recordings. You also have access to this community, so you'll see there's a lot of other doctors that are involved. You can ask them questions, and there's a whole section here that you can connect with the other practitioners that are in the class as well, and it's very much an active and wonderful community that we have created here. And let me show you within the, hang on a second, sorry, I'm on the wrong button here. Within the content for the My Practice Plan course, you'll find that there's a series of lectures and special topics in addition to the regular curriculum. So we have these business topics and covers everything from setting up a website to teaching patient education seminars to business planning. So these are all instances of doctors struggling with and videos that are recorded of doctors that are dealing with the business development kind of stuff that you're going to be dealing with as well. So we have that under content, under business topics. We also have a series of case studies of individual doctors talking about hiring staff, talking about building out their partnership, talking about their membership site, talking about all the different things that happen. So and we have, at this point I think in the training program, more case studies about doctors struggling with business issues and more business topics than you could probably actually consume. There's just a huge amount of information in here, which is not part of the regular curriculum, but is more of the sort of add-on extra stuff. And then I'll show you the actual content for the course. We also have here, all the live calls are recorded so you can watch them. So once a week we'll have a live call where we go over assignments and we talk about what is in the course, and that is very helpful as well. And then we have this legal strategy library, which we're building with Michael Cohen. Let me show you a little bit about Michael Cohen. So he and I teamed up this year, and he's an interesting fellow. So he's an attorney, and this is his website, and he has built a special legal module specifically for this course. And he and I have collaborated on this. We spent quite a bit of time working on this together. And I just want to give you a little bit of information about Michael Cohen because he's an extraordinary fellow. And well, first of all, he's written a fair number of books, which you can see here. He has also published a fair number of research articles. Now, he's an attorney by training, right? Went to Bolt Law School, one of the best law schools in the country, in Berkeley, California. He went to Wall Street, worked in Wall Street corporate law for a very short period of time, ended up in academic situations, teaching in a law school, and then in law schools, and then ended up at Harvard Medical School, where he spent 5 years on the faculty of Harvard Medical School as an assistant professor in the Department of Medicine. And I think he was the first attorney to actually get a role as an assistant professor in the Department of Medicine at Harvard University. He was also at the public health school at Harvard as well. So he was at the highest levels of academic medicine, working on, integrative and functional medicine, well, not functional medicine, but working on integrative issues for Harvard, right? He decided after that experience that he really wanted to go back into the trenches, and rather than staying in academic medicine, he wanted to pursue a career helping solo practitioners like ourselves struggling with the legal issues that come around functional medicine. So he's quite a brilliant man. He's a very kind and nice and spiritually oriented man, and we have just had a wonderful collaboration this last year. And we've put together what we're calling a legal strategies module in the course, which goes through everything from HIPAA compliance issues to Medicare issues to membership agreements. And we try to do it in a really lighthearted and fun way so you can get a broad sense, a broad education, a broad foundation in legal issues that you may be facing as you come into this area. So we have Michael Cohen on tap, and it's really wonderful. He's just a brilliant fellow and a great legal mind for helping all of us with these issues that are certainly above my pay grades. I'm not an attorney by training at all. So again, 3 major features for the course: the content, which is the lectures, the classes, which are the live calls each week, and then the community where you get to interact. And it's very action-oriented, so everyone in the course is going to be working to build a business. And so there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it peer pressure, but peer support, to make this happen. And again, here are the various sections of the class. We start off with self-care, focusing on personal issues, goal setting, how much money you want to make, how hard you want to work, how many hours you want to work, all these kinds of things. The second section, the second module, looks at business strategy, financial planning, learning about your margins, all the technical stuff you need around business and finance. We have a very great section on operations, everything from logistics to hiring and firing. We then look at communication skills, patient education skills, and how to develop those. Sales and marketing. And sales and marketing to me is patient education, but we need to learn some basic terms, like what's a sales funnel and how does that work? How are you going to brand yourself? What's your marketing plan look like? So as well as being great communicators, we want to have some of the basic lingo of the business figured out so we can develop our practices properly. And then, as I mentioned, we have the legal strategy section that's taught by Michael Cohen. Okay, so that's the basic course outline. And there's a little blurb there. And here we go again. This is the generalized map of the entire class, starting from the beginning and going all the way to the point where you have a plan in place. So let me show you just 1 or 2 more things here before we open up for questions. Here's a view of the curriculum, right? So when you purchase the course, you get access to all the lectures. You listen, one lecture to the next, starting off with the orientation section. Again, here's an image of the community, so you You also have this other software program that's really wonderful in the community. And then we're doing something special. Michael and I decided to do a special legal strategy session for people that sign up for the November class. And I don't think this is something he's never done before, but he and I are going to get into a webinar, and I'll be moderating, and we're going to be talking about answering questions that people may have sent in, answering questions that I want to pose to Michael that I know everyone's wondering about. So you get a basic understanding and a look and feel for not only my teaching style, but Michael's teaching style as well. And the legal strategy section of this course is really, I don't think there's anything like it out there. Typically, if you hire an attorney, you're not going to get someone with Michael's level of expertise that's really had 30 years of experience in this particular area. And then you're also going to pay a lot for an hourly rate of an attorney. And I think what Michael and I wanted to create was a broad look at all the different legal issues that you might be confronting. So when you do engage the services of an attorney, you know the right questions to ask. Hey, I want to opt out of Medicare, and here's my plan. And you can go to your attorney and say, hey, I want to create a membership agreement. That's what I want to do. Let's make that happen. Here's a draft of it. So you have a good way, a place to start there, basically, on the legal front, okay? As well as all the business planning issues and all those other types of things. All right, so that's the basic layout of the course. The cost, if you're an IFM member, you get a 10% discount. So the cost is $6,750. And there's some discounts that are going to be applied for these first starting groups that we have. And my sales folks can give you the details on that. And let me just grab the questions that came in. And if you have a question and you're listening right now live, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll be happy to answer it. But I'm going to also go through questions that were sent in earlier. First question, how do the classes work in terms of times of day and the setup? So the live calls for this group are going to be at 8 a.m. West Coast time, Pacific Standard Time on Wednesdays. And every class is recorded, so if you can't make it to the live calls, you can listen to the recording. How much individual attention do I get? So the way that we conduct the live calls is that we're looking at assignments that people have sent in, we're answering questions that people may have from the curriculum from the week that we just went through, and then other things that just come up. And so pretty much every class that I teach, last night I was teaching a course and it was supposed to be an hour and we went for almost an hour and a half. So we basically stay on the line and stay in the webinar until everyone's questions are answered every week. So it's not like you're one-on-one with me, but it's very much, it feels like you're being well taken care of because you'll get feedback from the other students in the course as we're discussing various topics that you may bring up, and you'll get my feedback every week. That's the whole point of the class, is that you have a lot of attention, basically. And this is not like just something that's posted online and then we run away and you're on your own, right? I'm in your face every week. Did you do your assignment? How's that plan looking? Blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of my role in all this. What happens after the course is done if I still need help? I encourage people to go through the class twice. Not that you pay for it twice, but you have access to these materials for a year, right? So you go through the entire curriculum. During the time of the regular course, you go back through the curriculum. You can pay a monthly fee and stay in the community so you can stay active. And it's not realistic that you're just going to figure out your entire business structure in a few months, right? So we definitely are set up for ongoing connections with people. If I'm a nurse practitioner, can I take the course? So yeah, so we have a pretty broad mix of practitioners. We have a large number of medical doctors from all different specialties. We have nurse practitioners for sure in almost every group. We have chiropractors, naturopaths, acupuncturists, nutritionists, some health coaches, not too many. There's usually one health coach in every large group that we start. But it's applicable to anyone who's interested in functional medicine. It's not specifically just for someone in a certain kind of practice. Let's see, how is your class different than IFM? So this is almost the opposite of IFM. IFM is the place to go for research knowledge, for academic understanding. You meet the best faculty in the world teaching the most up-to-date information, and these people work so hard to bring you guys the best of everything. It's just incredible to watch. This is the opposite in the sense that this is a practical, non-research, non-academic course in how you can start a business. So we're not struggling with issues like cytochrome P450 pathways. We're struggling with how you're going to get your merchant account set up so you can take credit cards, or how are you going to really create the best homepage website, not what's the difference between T3 and T4. Okay, so this is really, really basic business training, quite a bit different from anything IFM is offering directly. Okay, um, let me see here. Other questions. I think Christina had a question too. Let me grab her, see if she has her mic on. Christina, do you have your mic on there? If not, I'll just read out the question. So Christina just asked, I'm a DC in Texas and interested in marketing and branding issues as a practitioner. So the legal module is not specific to certain degrees or certain states. So you might be a medical doctor in Florida and there's different rules than if you're a naturopath in Wyoming. It's a broad look at things, so it should bring up the basic underlying legal issues that you need to struggle with, but you for sure then would want to hire an attorney on top of that to get specific legal advice. So it's not legal advice, it's more like legal education, legal strategy, and ideas. And then, but ideally, the legal module will give you enough of an understanding. So like I said, you can walk into an attorney's office and be asking the 10 most important questions. Okay, and Michael Cohen is also available if you want to consult with him directly, can become a client of his and engage him as an attorney, independent from the class, obviously, and get his expertise in a given area. Let's see, how long do we have access to the materials? I think you have access for a full year, even though the course is only for 4 months long. Who teaches the live Q&A sessions? So I teach all the live Q&A sessions myself. I'm the one that's pretty much on the calls every time. How many hours a week does the course take? Well, that's a good question. That's a hard question, actually, because it's really designed for 3 to 5, let's say 3 to 4 hours a week. Is kind of what we're thinking people are going to put into it. However, there's so many special case studies, there's so many special business topics, you could spend a lot more time in the community and looking at the materials than just a couple hours a week. We realize that most people that take this class have families, have jobs, are very busy, and that they're not going to have 5 to 10 hours a week to make all this work. So we're really expecting somewhere around 3 to 5 hours a week of time for people, and that's enough to feel, I think, like you've really gotten a lot out of the class, and that should be quite satisfied with the result. And the feedback that we've gotten from our regular students, and certainly the feedback that I received from the IFM faculty that went through the course, is really extraordinarily positive. New practitioners laying out the gist of what you should be concerned about and the things that you want to be thinking about as you're going through the development of your practice. More experienced practitioners refining their business model, making themselves more profitable. And again, it's all with this aim of de-stressing the practitioner so that you have the extra time in your life to take care of yourself. And we've trained over 1,000 practitioners in the last 10, 12 years. I've never had one single person who was in this to make more money for the sake of money. People in our profession who have integrity, who are the ones that we end up working with, are doing this because they're on a mission and they want to make more money so they have more time, so they can spend time with their families, so they don't burn out, so they can spend time on things like meditation and exercise, so they can really be there for their patients. So we're talking about building a practice that's profitable so that you can be doing this for a really long time and help the largest number of patients possible. That's really what we're shooting for. All right, so the class launches next week. I am happy to talk to anyone who is on the call who's curious and has questions. Please just send questions over, or you can set up a time and I can talk with you one-on-one, tell you a little bit more about the class if you're wondering about how it's structured, you have other things that you'd like to learn more about. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the course, and if not, we do have a regular series of monthly webinars that we'll be doing about practice building, practice management, practice implementation. So if you're not ready to sign up for the course yet, make sure you stay aware of the email list and you can look at the different free offerings that we'll have each month going forward. Okay, have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for joining us here.